The year was 1565, when the calm blue horizon around the small but fiercely strategic island of Malta vanished beneath hundreds of Ottoman sails, and a few hundred exhausted yet determined knights hospitaller prepared to face an invading force of nearly 40,000 soldiers, a difference in numbers so extreme that defeat seemed guaranteed before the first cannon ever roared. Yet this moment would become one of the most legendary confrontations in the history of warfare, not because of victory through conquest, but because of survival against the impossible. The Ottoman Empire did not come lightly or by accident. It arrived with elite janissaries, veteran commanders, engineers, beside massive artillery, supply ships, and absolute confidence born from decades of unstoppable expansion, believing that Malta would fall quickly and open the western Mediterranean to Ottoman dominance. The knights, in contrast, had limited manpower, aging fortifications, dwindling supplies, and little hope of reinforcement, but they possessed thick stone walls, narrow defensive corridors, carefully planned kill zones, years of brutal combat, experience, and the unshakable belief that surrender meant massacre, slavery, and the complete erasure of their order. When the siege began, Ottoman cannons thundered without mercy, day and night, shaking the island, shattering towers, collapsing walls, and tearing defenders apart as smoke, dust, and fire swallowed the sky. While the ground trembled beneath endless bombardment, beneath the surface, Ottoman sappers dug long tunnels under the fortifications, packing them with black powder to destroy the defenses from below, only to be met by knights who dug counter-tunnels and fought underground in total darkness, steel clashing against steel, sometimes killing enemies by sound alone as air filled with smoke, screams, and collapsing earth. When sections of the walls finally fell, waves of Ottoman soldiers surged forward with terrifying discipline and courage. Yet the narrow breaches turned their overwhelming numbers into a deadly weakness as knights met them with muskets, pikes, swords, boiling oil, burning pitch, falling stone, and savage hand-to-hand combat that transformed every opening into a slaughter ground soaked with blood. The Mediterranean summer itself became a ruthless enemy as armor burned the skin. Water supplies ran dangerously low, wounds rotted in the heat, disease spread rapidly through both camps, and flies covered the wounded and dying, killing men who had survived the battlefield but could not escape exhaustion and infection. Inside the battered fortresses, civilians fought beside the knights, carrying water, ammunition, messages, and the wounded, repairing walls under fire, praying through the night, and understanding that survival depended not on strength alone but on unity, sacrifice, and endurance. Day after day and week after week, the Ottomans launched relentless assaults, driven by orders, pride, faith, and the belief that sheer numbers must eventually crush resistance. Yet every attack cost them thousands of lives, filling beaches, trenches, and fields with corpses, and leaving the air permanently thick with the smell of death and gunpowder. Despite hunger, shattered walls, exhaustion, and horrific losses, the knights refused surrender. Even as food vanished, bodies weakened, and hope seemed distant, because survival itself had become their victory and resistance their only identity. Commanders on both sides understood this was no longer just a battle for a small island, but a clash between empires, and that the future balance of power in the Mediterranean, and perhaps all of Europe, depended on what happened on Malta's blood-soaked soil. As the months dragged on, Ottoman morale began to crack under constant resistance. Failed assaults, delayed reinforcements, internal disease, and the slow approach of winter. While the knights, wounded, starving, and vastly outnumbered, drew strength from their refusal to fall and the knowledge that every day they survived was a defeat for the invaders. Finally battered, bleeding, and stunned by the unbearable cost of every advance, Ottoman commanders ordered a retreat, loading their remaining survivors onto ships and sailing away, leaving behind shattered ambition, ruined equipment, and tens of thousands dead. Malta stood unbroken, Europe exhaled in relief, and the siege entered history as proof that numbers alone do not decide wars. The knights had not won through conquest or expansion, but through endurance, discipline, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. Cannons fell silent, smoke drifted across ruined walls, and the island bore scars that would never fade, scars carved into stone, memory, and legend. Survivors remembered endless nights filled with screams, prayers, orders, and the thunder of guns, while every shattered wall told the story of resistance against extinction. The Great Siege of Malta became a warning to empires and a symbol of defiance against impossible odds, showing that when 500 knights faced 40,000 Ottomans, history did not remember the size of the army, but the strength of those who refused to disappear, proving that courage, when pushed to its limits, can force even the mightiest empire to turn back.